The British government, led by communist puppet Kit Starmer, is proposing to introduce a mandatory digital identity infrastructure for all adults in the United Kingdom. This is being done with the excuse of controlling illegal workers better, but in reality, it represents an affront to civil liberties on a scale of considerable magnitude. There is a serious precedent in Canada, for example, when their truck drivers went on strike and their bank accounts were frozen, along with anyone who supported them. This was barely 3-4 years ago. The ability to use a digital identity is entirely contingent upon access to a smartphone, which means that in order to prove your identity, you would be required to own such a handset and pay for access to a network. Currently, the only alternative to using a smartphone is to have a microchip inserted under the skin in your hand. It is already a requirement to have a work visa for most people to work in the United Kingdom. Illegal migrants don't have a work visa, yet the problem exists that they work illegally via cash in hand. Digital ID does nothing to stop illegal working, which this post by Starmer suggests it would. One can already foresee the next steps, such as banning cash in favor of digital money, and attach this to the next pandemic, carbon taxes, facial recognition, voting, and so on. This is the beast's mass surveillance system being set up. Facial recognition and a valid vaccine passport are required to enter supermarkets in China. If you are not vaccinated, you are banned from buying food. This is one of the ways the Chinese government uses digital ID to control its people. But this is also present in the West, believe it or not. Every EU and EEA country now has some form of digital ID, though adoption rates vary. The United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are moving slower, but digital IDs or equivalents are in place or in rollout.
Yet, conference, there are still some people who can't listen in good faith on this issue, who say we can ignore the crisis and our asylum system so long as we get the economy moving. I have to say to those people very directly, we will tackle this issue. The British people are not unreasonable. They're pragmatic, compassionate, tolerant. That's who we are. What people want from politics, that hasn't changed. They want more cash in their pockets, safer streets, opportunities for their children, and an NHS that's fit for the future. And yes, they want secure borders. And that is a reasonable demand. Now, we should always say plainly and with pride that asylum for people genuinely fleeing persecution is the mark of a decent, compassionate country. But secure borders are also vital for a decent, compassionate country. Controlling who comes here is an essential task of government. And there's nothing compassionate or progressive in a vile trade that loads people into overcrowded boats, puts them in grave danger in the Channel, and ultimately exploits human desperation and hope. So mark my words. We will stop this. We will smash the gangs. We will crack down on illegal working. We will remove people with no right to be here. And we will secure Britain's borders. But there is a line, a moral line. And it isn't just Farage who crosses it. There are also people who should know better, sowing fear and discord across our country. And then when we call it out, they pretend that we're criticising reasonable concerns about immigration. We have seen that trick, conference. So let us spell it out once and for all. Controlling migration is a reasonable goal. But if you throw bricks and smash up private property, that's not legitimate. That is thuggery. Thank you, conference. Free speech, Free speech is a British value and we have guarded it for centuries. But if you incite racist violence and hatred, that is not expressing concern, it's criminal. And this party, this great party, is proud of our flags. Yet if they're painted alongside graffiti, telling a Chinese takeaway owner to go home, that's not pride, that's racism. And conference. If you say or imply that people cannot be English or British because of the colour of their skin, that mixed heritage families owe you an explanation, that people who've lived here for generations, raised their children here, built their lives here, working in our schools, our hospitals, running businesses, are our neighbours. If you say they should now be deported, then mark my words, we will fight you with everything we have, because you are the enemy of national renewal. And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them. And of course, the truth is, we won't solve our problems if we don't also take on the root causes, looking upstream to tackle poverty, conflict.
One of our viewers got in touch and wanted us to ask this question. Russ Brown wanted us to ask you if you really believe that those profiting from human trafficking will think, oh dear, I have to check your digital ID now. I can't carry on paying you £1.50 an hour to work in my sweatshop.
I am absolutely convinced that amongst the reasons that people travel through France, which is a safe country, to come to the United Kingdom, amongst the reasons is because it's easier to work in our illegal economy than it is in other countries. And we have to deal with that.
Bosses who are prepared to hire people illegally are not asking them for their national insurance card. So what's the evidence? What makes you think they're suddenly going to ask them for a digital ID?
We need to be really clear. You must have ID, mandatory digital ID, in order to work, because we have to stop illegal working. If you look at any of the raids, we've massively increased the number of raids on working premises. It is absolutely clear that people are working illegally in numbers.
But why do you think that them having a digital ID, having to have a digital ID, would stop that problem, when right now people are meant to have a national insurance number and card, and if they're not asked for that, a boss is willing already to break the rules? What's the difference going to be? Well, the difference is this is on point of starting, not a retrospective exercise as it now is. It is an automatic collection of the information by the government, so we know exactly who is working in our economy, and it will help us enforce the rules that are there. But there's no point people saying to me, why do we need it, when we all acknowledge there is a problem. People are working illegally in our economy. It is amongst the reasons that people want to come to the United Kingdom.
Right now, we're in the time to do something phase. Don't let it turn into we wish we had done something phase. And how we burned in the camps later thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family, or if, during periods of mass arrests, as for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, paling with terror at every bang of the downstairs door and at every step on the staircase, but had understood they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else was at hand. The organs would very quickly have suffered a shortage of officers and transport, and, notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt. If we didn't love freedom enough, and even more, we had no awareness of the real situation, we purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. Quote, unquote. Alessandro du Chatel, the Gulag Archipelago. The man behind the digital ID push is Larry Ellison, owner of Oracle, CVS, CNN, and soon TikTok. He wants data centralization and total surveillance. An article by Lighthouse Reports details exactly how this man is funding the digital ID racket in the UK. In it, insiders reveal how Ellison's money turned Tony Blair's institute into a tech sales and lobbying operation for Oracle. After leaving office, Blair founded such a flurry of initiatives, from charitable foundations to paid consultancies, that it's been hard to bring the big one into focus. The Tony Blair Institute of Global Change, also known as TVI, dwarfs the other work, just as it towers over other UK-based think tanks. Most of the reporting on it has focused on Blair himself, ever newsworthy, his Davos lifestyle and meetings with the world's rich and powerful. But the TVI isn't just a UK concern. It's now a global force working in at least 45 countries, employing other former heads of state, ex-ministers, and civil servants, and paying more than $1 million to its top earners. While previous Blair vehicles range around from development and peace building to reputational work for petrostates, the TVI has an overwhelming focus: technology. The ex-premier's trademark, evangelism, is now focused on artificial intelligence, its power to transform government, and why everyone should listen to Larry Ellison. While the Institute relies on Blair's political brand, its money comes, in large part, from Ellison, who has had a remarkable 2025. He was briefly the richest man in the world in September, as Oracle's stake in AI infrastructure drove its share price into orbit. In the 1990s, Ellison was known as the man who would be Gates as he battled the Microsoft founder for preeminence. This year, the 81-year-old has been feted by US President Donald Trump as the CEO of everything, and an essay in the New York Times called him the billionaire who will soon own the news, as his family's media interests in Paramount Sky Dance seem set to expand to include Warner Brothers. Ellison invested $130 million in the TVI between 2021 and 2023, with a further $218 million pledged since then. The scale of funding took the TVI from a headcount of 200 to approaching 1,000. Blair himself takes no salary from TVI, but over this time the Institute has been able to recruit from blue-chip firms like McKinsey and Silicon Valley giants Meta. In 2018, before the Oracle founder's funding surge, TVI's best-paid director earned $400,000. In 2023, the last year where accounts are available, the top earner took home $1.26 million. Blair and Ellison have a relationship that goes back to the former's time in office. Oracle has since been contracted hundreds of times by the British government and earned £1.1 billion in public sector revenue since the start of 2022, according to data collected by procurement analysts Tussle. The full extent of Ellison funding for the TVI became clear from the Institute's own accounts and a survey of U.S. nonprofit financial data, including that of Larry Ellison Foundation, through which major donations were made to both the TVI and Tony Blair Foundation across 9 countries in the Global South, and revealed how their work ranged from explicitly promoting Oracle services and acting as a sales engine to recommending tech solutions that are potentially harmful or bizarrely divorced from local realities. Former staff described a symbiotic relationship between TVI and Oracle, with the two entities holding joint retreats, and one ex-employee characterizing them as inseparable. The testimony was supported by public documents and those obtained under the UK's Freedom of Information laws, matched with interviews that revealed an organization unusually close to the British government, holding regular meetings with ministers in which they push policy recommendations that serve Oracle's interests. There is a reason why men whose fortunes are built on AI investments would target the UK, and that is the National Health Service and its unique population-level health data. Tech experts talk about Britain's health records in almost hushed tones, while Europe and the US have some comparable health data sets, such as US veterans' medical records. None have the depth of NHS records dating back to 1948. Its potential commercial value, from drugs to genome sequencing, has been estimated at up to £10 billion per annum. When Labour came to power last July, it did so promising economic growth and an end to the UK's productivity crisis. Just 5 days after Keir Starmer was elected, Blair told the TBI's Future of Britain conference that AI was the game changer they were looking for.
We have some of the world's best universities. After America and China, we're in third place in many of the key indicators. We have in DeepMind, as we shall see later today, one of the best, possibly the best artificial intelligence company in the world. But we're in danger of forfeiting our position. Universities, clinical trials, data centers, these are the things vital to building strength in sectors like life sciences, green technology, modern financial services and manufacturing, and of course, in AI itself. So focusing on this is the 21st century industrial strategy for a forward-looking British government.
Within months, Starmer was parroting Blair's language, and the TVI was in the backseat of the government's nascent AI policy, pushing Oracle's interests and its founder's worldview. The TVI has championed initiatives designed to unify public data, including a National Data Library, or the NDL. The NDL was little more than an idea when Labour put it in their selection manifesto, and there are still competing visions for what it should be. Ellison told Blair of his interest in NHS data when he was interviewed by him at the Dubai World Government Summit in February 2025.
Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
When you come to government and what government's doing, there are artificial intelligence tools, and some of them I know that Oracle have developed around financial management for government. But also, tell us a bit about what, because you're right at the forefront of this revolution, what it means for what government should do in terms of its digital infrastructure, digital ID, data centers, and so on.
How do you take advantage of these incredible AI models? And the first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. And in the Middle East, in the UAE, for example, they're incredibly rich in data. They have a lot of population data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. So that's the big step. That's kind of the missing link. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model, and then ask whatever question you like.
So you're really, through the use of this, you're revolutionizing the way government works, right? The services it provides, the way that it operates. What about things like financial management, procurement? How can AI help a government operate more efficiently, more effectively, give a more direct and better service to the citizen?
Well, we have these modern financial systems. So, countries can, and all, so for example, the AI system will help you do that. Again, the secret is to get all of that data in one place. Without having the basic data, it cannot answer the question about your country. I think countries are very uncomfortable with keeping their data in other countries' data centers. So I think part of our essential infrastructure, just like airports obviously need to be in our country, or they're not terribly useful. Ports need to be in our country, and they're not terribly useful. Data centers, because of the privacy requirements around the data, need to be in our countries, or they're not terribly useful. They need to be in our countries, but they also need to be secure. And there are new technologies right now. This is the last year you will ever log on to an Oracle system with a password. Next, by the middle of this year, I'm quite certain you are Tony Blair. So how do I know? Well, I look at you, I hear your voice, I listen to the kind of questions you ask. I'm pretty sure you're not synthetically created in having this conversation. The security system, we have biometric logins. The computer recognizes you. It recognizes your voice. It might ask you to put your index finger on the return key. And we're absolutely certain it's you. There's no reason to enter a password. In fact, passwords are too easily stolen. Data centers and data is being taken hostage all over the world. The ransomware business is a very, very good business. It's getting bigger and better every year. We tend not to talk about it because the American FBI has a simple advice to someone whose data has been ransomed. Just pay them because there's nothing we can do about it. But there is something we can do about it, not after the data is stolen, but before the data is stolen. We can make sure that we're using the latest security technology, and it is going to be biometrics assisted by AI to make sure that you are in fact Tony Blair, and I'm sure you are. Now, I would love to live to be 150 years old.
Well, there's an amazing opportunity to reimagine the state, the way that government functions, and the service that it can provide for its citizens.
2 weeks later, Blair's Institute published a report entitled Governing in the Age of AI, Building Britain's National Data Library. In it, the not-for-profit institute echoed Ellison and the UK's data infrastructure, calling it fragmented and unfit for purpose. Multiple staff working for TVI during the Ellison cash injection speak of a sea of change in culture. McKinsey consultants took senior positions and clashed with staff from humanitarian and development backgrounds. Ex-employees say this led to the Institute pivoting away from writing reports and recommendations by well-meaning development experts towards pushing aggressive tech solutions across the board. Oracle and TVI's connections are not just rhetorical. By 2023, joint retreats had become commonplace. At the Institute's headquarters at 1 Bartholomew Place in London, the teams would convene in the basement with executives from Oracle, Blair's key advisor Macon Cooney, and Ewo Ablo, who came to sit on the board of both TVI and Oracle, sometimes present. Senior TVI employees have been hosted at Oracle's headquarters in Austin, Texas, coordinated by a TVI employee whose role is to scale and manage the partnership with Oracle. Former staff recalls that there were other earlier hush-hush joint retreats at Ellison properties in the United States. It's hard to get across just how deeply connected the two organizations are, a former TVI staffer said. The meetings were like they're part of the same organization, as the TVI's partnership with Oracle deepened. Employees told us they started to see Oracle staff started to slide into TVI employees' calendars and schedule meetings in order to find out what the Institute was doing in different countries and scope out opportunities, recalls one former TVI staffer. Soon employees from the two entities were having regular joint calls. This sat uncomfortably with many TVI staff, with some describing having to push Oracle's technology, despite knowing they were not in the best interests of the country in question, and even had the potential to cause harm. The risk of so-called vendor lock-in, tying a buyer to a single supplier, was a source of unease, with one former staffer saying that advising governments to use Oracle Cloud services risk trapping and indebting them in systems that are initially free but will start charging in future. Rwanda, a country where TVI has been present for more than 15 years, was so frustrated with Oracle that it issued a public tender in 2021 for a database management system, stating that it had been experiencing a very high cost for support and licensing for Oracle systems, and it would like to migrate to an affordable system. Every solution to the crisis is another chain of control around the people. These governments no longer serve you, they serve an agenda to perpetuate corruption to the full extent as they distract you with carefully crafted psychological operations and else. With this, Jimmy Savile's former associate and tyrannical satanic cult puppet, Keith Starmer, will have an asterisk next to his name in world history as the most deviant and corrupt British Prime Minister to date. If they wanted to stop the boats, they could stop them, just like that. The former greatest navy of the world is hand-tied by its own so-called leaders.
But the responsibility of this party is not just to celebrate the NHS, it is to make it better. And in decades to come, I want people to look back on this moment as the moment we renewed the NHS for a new world, just as we look back on that great Labour government after the war. Because, conference, a new world is coming. Artificial intelligence is transforming healthcare. I've seen it for myself. I've spoken to patients alive because of it. Stroke patients, where the precise location of a blood clot is identified in milliseconds. Disease is changing too. And with an older society, more people who have long-term conditions, we need to put patients in control of their health, shift care closer to their lives, and put technology in their hands at their service. And that's what we're doing right across our NHS. But we have to keep up the pace. I've been there before, I know what it's like. If you stand still on public service reform, you do end up going backwards. Because today I can announce a completely digital NHS Trust, NHS Online, that will offer millions of appointments, convenient appointments, appointments you choose, a new chapter in the story of our NHS, harnessing the future, patients in control, waiting times cut for every single person in the country. That's national renewal. That's a Britain built for all.
Liverpool! No farmers! No food!
You've got to back your farmer, not starmer.
It's an absolutely incredible thing. Just had all the bikers and the tractor, and then the farms are coming through. Stand for privacy, the rights of citizens, and we also give a fig leaf, an olive branch, to anyone at the Labour Party conference who wants to stand for freedom and privacy together. We are not enemies, we're common citizens in Britain.
Alone, a farmer can be picked off. Together, we are unstoppable.
And we will never bow to tyrants.
This is our moment, because this is all about our farmers, your feed, and everyone's future.
It's not just about saving farms, this is not just about saving fisheries, this is not about just about veterans, this is also about saving lives.
Build a better Britain on our bellies, and let's have a farming food revolution and get rid of this stinky, horrible government ASAP.
Produce locally, sustainable, traceable, high welfare standards.
You came for our jobs,
Now we're coming for yours.
For freedom, stand together for democracy. We all stand together with our farmers. Let's make our noise, let's make our voices heard together.
This is a message for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party and anybody else in Parliament. I am not going to comply with your digital ID. It's not going to happen. Have a look at social media. Read the room. Look at the pushback. Look at the comments. The people are not going to do it. You're wasting your time. You're allowing unvetted migrants to enter this country and they're causing chaos and costing us billions. And you think the solution is to force me to have a digital ID to stop the boats from coming in? Are you deluded, man? Are you absolutely deluded? Because we're not going to comply. We're not going to consent. We've had enough. Did you not see what happened 2 weeks ago with the millions marching in London? That's the tip of an iceberg. People are rising. You need to resign and take every other MP in Parliament with you. We need good men and women in positions of power in this country whose only job is for the betterment of the men, women and children of the United Kingdom. Not these unelected, non-governmental organisations, the WEF, the UN and the World Health Organisation. You can pander to them, but we're not. We will not comply. We will not consent. You can stick your digital ID where the sun don't shine. Because we have had enough and we're not doing this anymore. Resign, get out. We don't want you. You are a criminal and you've betrayed the public. You should be arrested for treason along with every other MP who's voted for these draconian measures against the people you're supposed to serve. Get out.
Not pleased with all the crimes they commit, including the alleged public execution of Charlie Kirk, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has now taken it upon himself to threaten American patriots, and essentially all patriots worldwide. The glorified war criminal was meeting with over a dozen social media personalities, most of whom were women, at the Israeli consulate in New York. His speech at the United Nations before the meeting saw most of the delegates walk out of the assembly hall in protest of his continued bombing of civilians in the Middle East, which has been described by many as ethnic cleansing and even genocide. Influencer Deborah Lee shared footage of the meeting.
So something I would like to raise, which was actually my first published paper, was how you and the Likud party are cut from the same ideological cloth as Trump and the GOP in America. And so specifically with Charlie Kirk's assassination, who was a big mentor of mine, he's my first mentor in the space, evangelicals, from all my research, evangelicals are the reason that Israel has been supported in public sphere outside of just Jews. So with Charlie's assassination and with the kind of trajectory that we see with like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, I guess I'm curious about what's another game plan if we lose evangelical support for the state of Israel. What's our backup plan to be strong, like outside of the diaspora?
Christian influencers. Okay. You said we talked about the woke right, and you said I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke right, because these people, you know, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're the reason. But they're actually meeting on some of the things. And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well. Okay. And you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is
Followers.
TikTok, number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. That's very good. And, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him. Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot, and I could go on other things, but that's not the point right now. We have to fight the fight, okay? To give direction to the Jewish people and give direction to our non-Jewish friends or those who could be our Jewish our friends. Are we going to succeed with everyone? No. Will there be a strong counterpart? Yes.
While most of the influencers who met with Netanyahu are not household names, they do carry some weight on social media. Lee herself has just over 103,000 followers on X and has routinely appeared on Fox News. Others who were in attendance include Yair Netanyahu, Emily Austin, Deborah Lee Schwartzman, Shay Savo, Litzy Savetsky, Destiny Alberton, Emily Talento, Isaac Woodward, Cam Higby, Hannah Faulkner, Leif Lane, Dominic Huffman, and Luke Moon, among others. This pro-Zionist propaganda group of influencers has labeled themselves as Generation Zion. Moon, the director of the Philos Project, led the initiative. This organization worked with and promoted the Catholic Information Center. In addition, they have a propaganda arm called Philos Catholic, whose agenda includes distorting the relationship between the Catholic Church and modern Talmudic Jews, along with operating as a fifth column. Recall that Trent Horn partnered with them earlier this year to give a lecture on anti-Semitism. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance made a speech to discuss October 7th for this same Jewish outfit. Their main mission, however, is to blur the distinction between the ancient Jews, those faithful to Moses and the prophets who accepted Jesus Christ, and the unfaithful modern Jews. The latter are the children of the devil and no longer chosen by God, the infamous synagogue of Satan. The Philos Project is bankrolled by Jewish billionaire Paul Singer, an activist, vulture capitalist who is a proponent of LGBTQ propaganda and Zionism. Netanyahu's meeting comes as attitude among Generation Z, those who are 30 years old and younger, toward Israel are at a low point. Netanyahu specifically mentioned TikTok during his meeting as well as X. He praised TikTok's recent sale as extremely consequential and one of the most important purchases that is going on. He was referring to President Trump's decision to recently sign off on a forced sale of TikTok that allows Oracle to purchase a minority share in the company.
Do you think that there can be a two-state solution that creates an independent?
I don't know. I'd ask Bibi that question. You have the greatest man in the world to answer that age-old question, two-state. Go ahead. You give him your honest answer.
I think Palestinians should have all the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers to threaten us. And that means that certain powers, like overall security, will always remain in our hands. Now, that is a fact. And no one in Israel will agree to anything else because we don't commit suicide. We want life, we cherish life for ourselves, for our neighbors. And I think we can work out a peace between us and the entire Middle East with President Trump's leadership. And by working together, I think we can establish a very, very broad peace that will include all our neighbors.
Free speech advocates view the sale of TikTok as a blatant effort to stifle criticism of Israel in the platform. Ellison is not only one of the biggest donors of the Israeli Defense Forces, but the black hand pushing and financing for mandatory digital ID in the United Kingdom, despite not being British, as discussed during our first segment.
Tell us, what is your connection to Israel?
Well, the renewal of the Jewish state is something that I think touches all of us. For 2,000 years, we were a stateless people. And now we have a country of our own, defended by all the brave men and women of the IDF. So anything we can do to support them, who devote their lives for preserving the state of Israel, keeping the people safe, and allowing our state to continue sometimes in very, very difficult situations.
Did you visit Israel?
I have been to Israel. I have been to the border. I have spent time to the people who govern the state of Israel. And I feel a deep emotional connection to the state of Israel and the Israeli people.
You are an high-tech person. What do you think about Israeli startups and high-tech phenomena?
Oh, well, after Silicon Valley, there's an area, Herzliya has probably got more startups than any other place other than Silicon Valley in Northern California. So we've actually acquired a number of Israeli companies. We have 2 CEOs at Oracle. One's name is Safra Katz, and she was born in Israel. So again, we love the country of Israel, and we'll do everything we can to support the country of Israel.
We recently hear that many people criticizing Israel, especially after the Gaza operation. How do you feel as someone just saying we love Israel so much?
Well, again, it's a difficult situation, isn't it? To conduct military operations around civilians is very difficult, and of course, there were tragedies, and the civilians were hurt. That's a terrible thing. But one thing we know for certain, that the Israeli army did everything they could to minimize civilian casualties. In that regard, they've done a much better job than a lot of other armies all over the world throughout history.
Thank you very much.
לא העיקרי, קודם כל, לתת להם מכות, לא רק מכות כל כך מכירות, שהמחיר יהיה כבד מצוא. כרגע המחיר לא כבד מצוא. התקפה רבת היקף על הרשות הפלסטינית. תביא אותה לפחד שהכל מתמוטט.
לא פוחדים, צוחקים להם, יראו לנו לתוך הישב פה וצחוק ופשוט הם לא פוחדים.
זה מה שמביא אותם
ואז רגע, אבל אז השוק מהעולם יגיד מה, אתם כובשים? אתה לא מפחד מהעולם, ביבי.
במיוחד היום עם אמריקה, אני יודע מה זה אמריקה. אמריקה זה לא שאפשר להזיז אותו בקלות, להזיז לכיוון הנכון. אבל לא יכניעו.
אז שאני אנחנו עושים לזה משהו, אז הם...
יש עליה, אז נניח שהם אומרים משהו. 80% מהאמריקאים תומכים בה. זה אבסורד. לא פחדתי להתעמת שם. לא פחדתי להתעמת עם קלינטון. לא פחדתי להתעמת עם אורן. מה היו הסכמי אוסלו? הסכמי אוסלו שהכנסת חתמה עליהם. שאלו אותי לפני הבחירות התקיים. כן, בתנאי כפוף להדדיות וצמצום הנסיבות. אבל איך אתה צמצם את הנסיבות? אני אתן פירוש להסכם שיאפשר לי להפסיק את הדהירה הזאת לקווי 67. איך עשינו את זה? אף אחד לא אמר מה זה אתרים צבאיים מוגדרים. אתרים צבאיים מוגדרים, אני אמרתי, אלה אזורי ביטחון. בקעת הירדן, מבחינתי זה אתר צבאי מוגדר.
נכון.
זה אוקיי. אף אחד לא... לך תגיד. אבל אז הייתה שאלה, מי יגדיר מה זה אתרים צבאיים מוגדרים? קיבלתי מכתב מקריסטופר. אליי ולערפאת, באותה לשון. שאומר שישראל בלבד היא זו שתגדיר מהם את מיקום האתרים הצבאיים האלה ואת גודלם. עכשיו, הם לא רצו לתת את המכתב הזה, אז לא נתתי את הסכם כמובן. הפסקתי את ישיבת הממשלה, אמרתי, אני לא חושב. רק כשהגיע המכתב, תוך כדי הישיבה, אליי ואל ערפאת, חתמתי על הסכם.